Okay, this is my second video. I was talking about the big pharmaceutical drug companies in the last one. But all these invisible conditions are not getting as much attention as your cancer. And I'm not saying those are not important topics. But I think what people don't realize is the government already has cures for these things and they're hiding it from people. And people are unnecessarily dying because the government refuses to give the right medicine, which is natural medicines. They want to charge you for these drugs that is going to kill you. And that's how they make their money. They're trying to kill you. Now, I'm not saying there's not a place for medicine, such as pills. I'm not trying to say, oh, you shouldn't go see a doctor. I'm not on one of those kicks. But what I am trying to say is that people should also look for natural methods. It shouldn't be just, oh, I'll take morphine or Demerol or Vicodin or Percocet, and not try to do like meditation, visualization, focusing on something else besides the pain, staying active as much as possible. And yes, it's hard. I mean, I live here with pain day in and day out. I know. When I first got diagnosed with whatever's causing me to be in pain all the time, whether it's one thing or it's a combination of things, before they put me on Tramadol, Neurontin, Elavil, Motrin, and I'm also experimenting with pot, I'll go ahead and say it, cannabis. Before all those treatments, I was in severe pain. I was waking up crying in the middle of the night, and I still have those nights, depending on the weather. If it's raining, if it's cold, if it's too hot. All these things cause flare-ups, and it makes the pain worse. Or if I move a certain way, it causes pain. I know I don't look like I'm in pain now, which I am, but not as much as if I had not been taking these medicines. So I'm not trying to negate doctors or prescriptions. I'm just saying that we should try to go back to natural methods as much as possible. The shot or the pill shouldn't be the only solution. If you want to deal with your spirituality, your faith, then you should do those methods. If that's what keeps you from focusing or dwelling on your condition. I hurt. Like I said, I hurt right now. But I'm better because when I smoke the cannabis, I've noticed that two things happen. One, well, maybe more than two things, but one is the pain is way, way less. Now that may be along with the medicine or maybe by itself, but the pain is almost non-existent. Okay, I also noticed that when I smoke cannabis, that I can walk perfect. I don't need a cane when I smoke cannabis. Now, I used to be one of those people who would say, oh, drugs are bad, don't do them. And I still believe some drugs are bad. But I think that marijuana can be a solution for those who deal with these illnesses. And I'm not saying that maybe their faith says, no, you shouldn't be doing this. Or maybe they say, okay, but I don't want to become addicted, which scientists have proven, not according to the government, but they have proven that cannabis is not as addictive as alcohol, as tobacco, as caffeine. And like I said, I'm not trying to promote drugs to anybody. It's what you feel is necessary and right for you. And I'm not saying kids should have it. The only time I would say kids should have it is if it's guided by the parents and they have conditions like multiple sclerosis, epilepsy, stuff like that. Now, with that being said, do I feel that marijuana should be legalized? Yes, I do. Because I see it as a plant. I don't see it as the same as they're trying to say, which is LSD, cocaine, heroin, morphine. I don't see it like that. That still does not mean I think kids should be able to have it. Cigarettes are legal, and we still have guidelines where kids don't get it. I mean, they still get it, but there's laws. So if they're sold and the person's caught selling it to them, they still get fined or go to jail or get their business shut down. So, I'm not promoting pot to anybody. I'm just saying what works for me. And what I found works for me is smoking cannabis Maybe 1 or 2 joints a day. Even that much. You know, some people need more. 2 joints for me, 2 or 3 joints a day, or hits, or whatever. I can walk fine for like 2 days. Almost 3. And that's just from a couple joints. You know? And that's why it works for me. Now, does that mean I'm not going to still take my Tramadol, my Elavil, my Neurontin? I think I'd be crazy. Because I have noticed when I don't take my medicine, the pain still comes back. So, well, I haven't tried with the cannabis yet, but the cannabis has been around for thousands of years. It was used in biblical times. It was used before biblical times. It's always been used. It's always been a plant. And I'm sure people would argue, well, cocaine's always been used and all that. I'm not talking about cocaine, and I don't want people to think that I'm, you know, maybe I am or maybe I'm not, but I find that this is what works for me, is smoking 2 or 3 joints a day equivalent. Helps me walk. It helps me focus. The pain is very, very less. And so it works for me. And I don't think any government should be telling me what works for my body. You know, before Henry, whatever his name, or whatever, I could even be getting the name wrong with that. I have to double check. But before the 1930s, America did not have a problem with cannabis use as a medicine. And then along comes this man in the 1930s and says, oh, well, this is known to cause psychosis and schizophrenia, and people are going to go rape and murder. I can tell you from my experience, now don't get me wrong with this. I had some cannabis the other night that knocked me on my butt. And I still haven't been able to find out the name of it. But I'm not saying that cannabis doesn't have the high feeling. It does. Because we'd all be lying if we said that. So yes, I've had some weird things happen with it. But generally speaking, you know, I have weird feelings with my freaking whatever I take. You know? Vicodin causes some hallucinations. Morphine causes hallucinations. You know, it's not... But that's something else I'll get into later. I'll make more videos about that. But my point being is that I have all these conditions. Like I said, the first condition I remember having was the epilepsy. Then came the interstitial lung disease. Then came osteoarthritis. Then came pulmonary hypertension, then mixed connective tissue disease, and now possible multiple sclerosis. Maybe peripheral neuropathy in there somewhere too. And it's all because my body is shutting down. And I'll get more into that in this next video because we're coming up to 9 minutes again. Amazing how fast it goes. But I want to discuss more about what I go through on a daily basis to help some of those of you who might not understand what a normal person who has these conditions go through. And one of the things I want to talk about is the mixed connective tissue disease because of how it affects the body and what it can produce and all that. So let me get to the next video and I'll be right back.